Speaking about the legal Syrian government, they have the full right to protect their sovereignty and to drive out, to liquidate the terrorist threat on their territory. This is the main problem about Idlib. In this area, which was marked a de-escalation zone, is that there must be a separation between armed opposition, which is ready to hold dialogue with the government, and al-Nusra terrorists.
Those comments were criticised by US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He said the US views the Syrian regime's military action on Idlib as an escalation of the conflict in the country, and that Syrians living in Idlib will likely suffer from this aggression, and the eyes of the world will be on them.
The US Secretary of State is accusing Russia and President Assad of escalating the Syrian conflict, calling plans to rid Idlib province of Islamic terrorists an assault. Mike Pompeo says the civilian population will end up bearing the brunt. Russia's foreign minister earlier laid out Moscow's position.
This is the last place for the terrorists, so from all points of view, this abscess should be removed.
Idlib's been a haven for rebels and their families evacuated from areas retaken by the government. Almost 3 million people currently live in that province, though according to the UN, there are also thousands of jihadist militants there too.
Idlib has another fact, and we have to recognize it, an extremely high concentration of foreign fighters. The estimates of the al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, whatever name they want to call themselves, is more or less around 10,000 of them.
Investigative journalist Rick Sterling says Western nations don't want to see the highly trained foreign terrorists in Syria returning to their home countries.
Elements within the United States and NATO, for that matter, want to prolong the conflict. They basically want the Syrian government to let the terrorists stay in Idlib province. We can just imagine what Mike Pompeo would say if there were thousands of terrorists in Oregon and Washington states in the United States. They wouldn't have any patience at all for that. The situation is complicated right now. It's difficult because there are thousands of foreign fighters there. These are trained terrorists with a lot of battle experience, and they've been supported by the West. They've been supported by the Gulf, including Turkey, and none of the countries that have supported the terrorists want them to come back to their own countries, of course. And it's kind of hypocritical for Mike Pompeo to criticize Syria for trying to expel terrorists from its own territory.
For the people of Idlib right now, these streets are their megaphone to the world. But at a moment's notice, they could become an escape route, the way out of an expected attack.
We have gathered in Idlib to demonstrate against the intervention of Russia and the regime. Idlib is composed of many migrant people all over Syria, such as Aleppo, Hama and other places.
These protesters are pleading with the international community to intervene. They want to prevent an assault on this city, which they fear is imminent under the Syrian regime. Idlib was designated as a de-escalation zone, where acts of aggression are expressly forbidden except against designated terror groups. But that hasn't stopped it being the target of airstrikes by Russian and Assad regime forces, which have killed rebel fighters, but also civilians. On Thursday, the Syrian regime's foreign minister said it would go all the way in a military assault. The UN says that would put civilians, including more than 1 million children, at risk. It's already started drawing up contingency plans, organising food and water for those who could flee, perhaps as many as 700,000 people. While aid agencies prepare for the fallout, diplomatic efforts are still ongoing. Turkey's Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said in a tweet, "At our meeting with the President of the Syrian Negotiations Commission, we exchanged views on recent developments in Syria, including Idlib, and also the period ahead concerning the political process." It's thought that half of the 2.9 million people living in Idlib are already displaced from other Syrian cities. Now it seems it's only a matter of time before they are forced to find somewhere else to seek refuge.